Welcome to the Go Time Podcast. With your host, Todd Martin.
Today on the Go Time Podcast, we have Bill Rogers, PGA golfer on the tour for, you were on the tour for like 11 years?
14 years.
14 years.
That was probably 3 more than it should have been, actually.
You have, you've had 6 tour wins, and then since then you run the San Antonio Golf Club?
Well, yeah, that was a piece of it. Yeah, let me see, my tour life, which was 14 formal years of playing on the PGA Golf Tour,
yeah.
But that combined with being born into a golf family and really growing up in golf,
really,
much like your exposure to horses and falling in love with the horse dream. I was exposed to golf at an early age, and there are a lot of steps to eventually play high level golf, which is the professional golf tour.
So where did you get, who introduced you to golf?
Well, my family, I was born into a golf family. Air Force, I was an Air Force brat, but my dad was a very good player. My brother, I have 2 brothers, but my middle brother's a very good player, and I picked the game up from them like a little kid. I'd follow them around, and man, heck, I wanted to be a part of playing, but hitting golf balls, shagging golf balls, just hanging out with them. But we all of us were competitively strong. We had a chord in us that we liked to, we liked the thrill of winning and the agony of losing, that type deal. But the fact of the matter is, we had good. I say we, all of our family, good athletes, good eye hand. And I picked up the game, really, right off the bat. I mean, I could do it. It's a complicated game like anything. Once you, progress in it, it is, if you want to do it well, it can be complicated, but I could do it right off the bat. Naturally, I was able to play golf, and, I think a lot of that was just being around it, watching it. But,
who was your first coach? Was it like your dad?
Well, really, yeah. He and my brother. And I think I would more just compartmentalize or think of that as me watching them do it. I kind of grew into the game, but formally,
I visualize. I learned through watching other people too. I'm a real visual learner.
I as well.
I mimic. That was something that I couldn't understand a lot of it, but I could mimic what it was doing, and that mimic would teach me a lot.
100%. I think some if you call that kinetic or type learning or feeling and that type, I think that was me. I wasn't, I was a little bit less somebody telling me how to do it. But be that as it may, the golf profession has PGA golf professionals that teach the game and run golf operations, whatever. But I grew up in East Texas after my dad retired in Texarkana, and there was a PGA golf professional up there. His name was Jerry Robinson, and he really wasn't particularly a guy that liked kids that much, but he saw that I had some golf talent, and he really, I think as I reflect back on it, ultimately kind of vicariously lived his playing kind of career type golf life through me, and he poured his life into me, invested a lot of time, like a second father type deal. But he brought me along and developed me from what I would call a golfer that could play golf into a player. And he had great vision for where I could take my talent. And ultimately that led me through high school, then went to college on a golf scholarship at the University of Houston. Mm-hmm. And, the great dream was to play the tour. That's where I wanted to be. And that's where, he kind of channeled all of his efforts into forming me into a player that could reach that goal. And
so he really had, like, so when he started to see what you had in your talent and you had the want to on the other end also, he really like had it like set up a plan to get there.
No doubt. And it was really kind of brilliant, first of all and foremost. And I had supportive parents that allowed him to kind of move me in and out of this learning process. But probably in your game, like I would say any learning game, if somebody makes it fun for you, man, there's an element of that you just, you're all in. And he made it fun for me.
Wow.
And to some degree, he actually, so much so, he was teaching me, but in a fun environment. And, from teaching me how to lose, how to win, and everything in between, how to handle it, the mental part of it, how to play.
That's crazy because I've been bad at that.
Yeah.
As far as coach wise, like, for a long time, right? I was a lot more focused on like me getting where I was going to go and what I was doing in my career and whatever else. And then, I kind of got into doing some of the youth. And I was doing the youth for a while, and I really, I did that really poorly. Like I didn't make it fun. I didn't make it that, and I had to learn how to. I actually learned it with my little girl. I've got my youngest is she's now 11, so she's on the brink of a teenager. It's driving me crazy.
Good luck. Good luck. Yeah.
And I'm just trying my hardest to keep her doing as much horses up as I can.
May all of God's favor rest on you, brother.
No, it's terrible. She's cute as a button, and she's outgoing, and she's funny, and she's everything that, probably, a lot of things that I was, and that's what scares me the most.
She'll be fine. She'll be fine.
But I got to doing it with her, and I wanted so much for her to do well with it that I started making it terrible. I didn't, and that was, and I saw that in some of my other youth too. And so I had to really kind of, redirect that. And that's cool to see that somebody, like what that impact somebody has in continue to make it fun, because you can make that not fun, even though it is something fun.
Absolutely. And I would, probably in the middle of it as I was being brought along. I'm not sure I understood it, reflecting like,
sure.
Well, this is, but it was absolutely something that I wanted to do. And, you give an athlete some want to, and some, the environment to, thrive in.
Encouragement.
Yeah. You've got you've got a chance. You've got a possibility of going somewhere.
That's so much more important at the beginning. I mean, not that it's not important at the end of the game too, but boy, it is really, that's where you find the love of whatever the event is.
Yeah. No doubt that you do have the activity, the sport, whatever you gravitate toward, but with some years on you and a little bit of wisdom, hopefully you understand it's the important people that you were placed in your path. God put in your path along the way that you're forever blessed by that. I mean, we can take things on ourselves, but the encouragement and the expertise of others that guide us along, very, very important. And it fills your heart with a lot of gratitude and certainly joy that these people chose to invest some time in you. And this East Texas golf professional who actually did, he played the game professionally as well, but just couldn't get there. I mean, he's a good player, but there are a jillion of them that never get there. And he was one of those. So he shipped out to be a golf professional.
That's fun. It's funny. You see the view from the outside, and then you see the view from the inside a lot of times. And you really, like me looking back now, I think that I'm at a point in my career where I can make so much more of an impact than I ever did any other time by not that I have to go win another, competition, because it's the same. Next year there's another one, and next year is another one. But it's the impact that it's almost kind of funny that I question myself, right, as to have we created a society of men who are so involved in reaching their goals again that we're losing our impact on the youth, by not investing, what we've learned into that youth, because we still measure ourselves by what, the outside measures us and stuff too, right?
The performance and the opinions of others, our identity, which is what we spend a lifetime, as learners, at hopefully learning how to move away from that and know where our identity truly lies.
I think too that one of the big things is realizing. So I got a question for you on it, like how was the impact on you? Like, do you remember more of your greatest losses, or do you remember more of your greatest victories?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a great question there. I'm kind of one of the ones that I believe I could. Golly, let me think of how I'm going to put that. It hurt more to lose than it felt good to win. That's a competitive level that oh boy, hating to lose can it can either ship you out or learn from it to continue to move forward and use that in a healthy way. But
that is the deal, is the healthy way, right?
Pardon me?
That's the deal, is like figuring out the healthy way
absolutely,
to use that.
Because there's a lot that comes along with winning and losing, and again, it's the process, so to speak. This whole process we're involved in, but golf is one of the all athletics, really anything, because we're all headed in the same direction. We strive for things that maybe aren't that fulfilling, and accomplishment and all the stuff. And, we spend a lifetime trying to learn really what is fulfilling. And, but that, be that as it may, a competitor in high profile sports will, be tested at every level. How are you going to handle winning? How are you going to handle losing? And, losing, frankly, has a way of flushing out the, if you say weak, but those that aren't willing to hang in there and learn from it. But that's kind of I think the nature of.
I have reframed my my thoughts on losing, or at least I'm attempting to, because in all honesty, I still hate to lose. And I don't think anybody doesn't hate to lose.
Show me somebody that doesn't, and I'll show you a loser.
But I think it's really it was an eye opener to me to realize that every loss was, and every struggle that I went through, hardship or whatever, that's where I grew anyhow. Like, so I never, the win was a great reward at something, but it was, that reward would have never come without the loss to learn from.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about that is that the process of learning, and usually it happens down in the valleys and the hard stuff, and we don't realize, certainly at the time, the benefit that ultimately can pay off. And you would know this as well as anybody, winning a horse, your world and horsemanship, whatever it may be, as you drive out of that parking lot, it's a fleeting deal. I mean, it satisfies temporarily, but it's not long lasting satisfaction, because frankly, the world is going to tell you, what are you going to do today? How are you going to follow that up?
Yeah.
I'll never forget. This is maybe way forward to where you want to get in this conversation. But, I'm in the top of the world, on top of the world in the golf world, professionally speaking, and accomplished about anything that anybody would want to accomplish in a 1 year time frame, winning 7 times around the world, voted the best player in the world, this and that, all the great accolades,
Yeah,
having
exactly.
experienced
A major high.
Well, it was. And man,
Yeah.
I'm on top of the world. I'll never forget the following year, beginning the tour again, of which it's everybody starts out dead even. And I tee it up in the first tournament, recognized, introduced on the first tee, the first tournament of the following year. Bill Rogers, British Open champion, 1981 Player of the Year. And I can remember feeling as though the weight of the world falling right on my shoulders. And I saying to myself, subconsciously, consciously, I've got to do this again. I've got to validate what I did the previous year, which is, you talk about
at the
something
bottom of the hill again.
Oh, you're talking about something that'll clip you out, it'll take your legs out from under you. But that was my fear. That as a competitor, boy, you're only as good as what you can show the world today, and that's a tough standard to live to. Good is never good enough, and enough is not enough.
And having perspective, I think, is really key. Being able to find that perspective. I remember I was at a show once, and I was sitting with a group of guys, and we were talking about, who had the one for this year, who's got it, right? And we're sitting and talking. One's like, oh, you're riding a smoking one this year, and like you think you got a shot and whatever, and everybody's kind of just BSing around and stuff, and what I think is, from the outside, a lot of people don't realize the camaraderie between the competitors, that we all want to win, but we all like each other too, right? And there's a bond there because we're all in the same boat, right? And one of the guys said, yeah, but you know what? We're all even on Monday. And it was so true. You just, that one show, and, you can put that upon yourself, or you can allow somebody else to put that on you. But, having perspective to realize that, on Monday, we're all even again.
Absolutely.
We're just right back there again. And, if you can't get the grasp of that, you can have a hard time, really hard time.
Well, I think if we're speaking from a spiritual perspective, I think to understand this, it's hard to, as a 29-year-old, a young man, and has got everything from success to money. It's a dangerous recipe. Honestly, and you're bulletproof. And lots of examples out there. A lot of folks that have dealt with this have reached the pinnacle. And man, you're talking about thinking a lot of yourself, and it's all about me, a world all about me, and everybody's telling you how great you are, and this and that, and you just you believe in all your own press, and you just like I said, your ego, and you can't fit in many rooms. It's just really kind of almost self-focused, selfish, running amok, and it's dangerous, very dangerous. And I've found and with the gift of some years and some wonderful people having come along at later, this later part of life, that there's a bigger perspective, a bigger game in play here, that maybe you can use what happened in that success mode, and having the trying to get there. You might be able to share that in a proper way that might give some people some hope and some joy and some peace along the way. And I think that's what we're doing here, actually. Yeah.
I think that is, I think a lot of times all of us can, no matter what it is, we can get so lost on the big picture. Yeah. And because of, self is a really screwy thing. It's a tempting
What a study. What a study.
I've heard once before that I like me, and I like a whole lot of me. And
let's talk about me some more.
Yeah. And I think that's the tempting part, right? I think that's it's the original sin. Right? It's so much the original sin, right? That it was, it's about me.
Declared our independence.
Yeah, exactly.
oh golly, the direction you can take off and all this. And I speak from experience, and I love that almighty dollar too. Golly, man, I would chase it down more as opportunities came forward. Man, if it involved getting more, I went for it, and just completely misguided. Because heck, I wanted all the stuff. I went for the gusto, and boy, there was plenty of opportunity. And in our game, that involved traveling all over the world. I mean, man, there's not a corner of the earth I didn't visit. Is a what they call an Open champion, a British Open champion. Man, you're kind of the world's champion, and anybody that's got anything to do with golf, wanted you and wanted to see who this was and who the new Open champion was. But I didn't disappoint, man. I went for it, and ultimately that had. Frankly, there was an aspect of that really kind of drew me away from. I lost the true beauty of the game and the process of. I lost all perspective of that. Man, I was in it for me. I wanted it big, and kind of lost a love for the game. Actually, I mean, got in a real dark place about it. Actually, so anyway, I was a slow learner. I had to bump up against all the obstacles. And
I'm good at banging my head against things, hard things. It's a good thing I've got a hard head, because I do bang it quite often. And
I not want to mislead anybody too. I'm still a work in progress, a slow learner, and but that's a good place to be, actually.
I have to remind myself that I'm very happy that I'm still here and worthy of the trials and worthy of the process of thinking it and move in that direction. So now in your career, I'm curious about your coaching with the UTSA golf team and that deal, because that's, I think, a kind of where I'm at a point of is being, teaching and coaching that end of, and pouring into others, right? Yeah. Like it's just, I'm lucky enough to still be doing it, still have the love for doing it. I still am continuing to go and compete and show because I think it's where I grow the most is, and unfortunately, some of my growth really comes from losing. But it pushes me back to what's important and getting to share that with other ones that, finding their love for it and continuing to grow in their learning on it. So, getting to invest into that age group, it's got to be a lot of fun. It's really rewarding, huh?
High calling business. I don't know that the coaching business, and that might come in a lot of shapes and forms, but in the sports world, coaching is a high calling business. You have the opportunity, especially in this day and time when, boy, you are up against a whole lot of young men and women that may have not had ideal leadership from, be it parental, siblings, whatever. But anyway, it is so important to have opportunity to speak into young men and women's lives. And that's was the real cherished turf I was in when I was at UTSA, helping in the men's and women's golf programs there. And heck, you can always talk about, teaching some golf skills, about playing, about, some of the finer deals, this, that strategy, we know that almost secondhand, but golly, you could pick, and that was part of my challenge in this new world where I was, in that arena, that, picking and choosing the right moments to speak to these kids.
That's an art in itself.
Well, I think it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I can get to talking. I can get off on rabbit trails, and I can get way out of bounds. But I think it was God trying to show me. We're going to work on your patience and your. A little bit of. We've got some refinement to do at this chapter of life. Let's put you in front of some young men and women teach you a little bit about, how to encourage them, how to love them, how to, deal with some of the issues that they're dealing with. Learning to be a giver rather than a taker. And I think that was the beauty of that little season of life. I did it for 6.5 years. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of, as I see it, just a distinct chapter in my life story, so to speak. And I just cherish the idea that, and when occasionally you'll see on your phone a caller ID, one of them calls back to say, maybe even ask for some advice or just to check in. I think you're rewarded. God rewards that.
Isn't that so cool?
Mm-hmm.
It's funny when I'm looking at, when I kind of equate and look into like leadership, and I thought, there's times where I thought that I was leading because I was leading in, accomplishing something or whatever else. And boy, the leadership is, so I always say that a true good example of leadership is a sacrificial leadership, right? And our greatest example of a sacrificial leadership is Christ. Yes. And there's no other that was a greater example of that. And we revere those who sacrifice their lives for our freedom and sacrifice their lives for what's right and standing up in spite of whatever the consequences might be. And being able to take youth and be able to pour into their lives from a point of experience. You start to realize, like I would imagine where you were at in that point, we never, looking back, I didn't put the importance on the coach, right? It's such an unsung, sacrificial position, but God, is that so important? And you can't lead and be a coach in that position without understanding the loss part. Like you could coach from a winning position with no loss, and you'll never inspire the others the way that the ones that understand the position of building up from the bottom and dealing with the loss. That's more important than any of it, right?
So well said, because we're going to lose a lot more than we're going to win. And I'd like to, speaking of that, I know you're talking about off topic here, but I'd like to have an interview with Trevor Lawrence, the Clemson quarterback that never lost, in that he's lost a bunch. And anyway, I'll bet that he's learning a whole lot, and will only be better because of it.
I know, right?
But be that.
He would never have been like where he's really. You almost want to reach out and speak into his life, at a point where they're at that, where you can go like, hey, so this is where the big stuff is.
I think just naturally, if we're, he'll probably pick up a lot just on his own, but I'm sure he's probably got some pretty good people around him speaking into his life too. But we're gonna learn more. Back to, I think we commented before from the losing aspect, but young men and women, and this is college young men and women. I mean, obviously even younger than that, but they're vulnerable, and especially in a crazy upside down world. I don't know. I just we I hope we don't get off in that way as it could, but. Boy, they are challenged every day they wake up when the lights come on. They are challenged with so much. And from an athlete's perspective, they have so many on a daily, every day they wake up.
Right.
They have so many people speaking into their lives that it's just, that includes all the phone business and social media. But when you start talking about from a student athlete standpoint, you have coaches, professors, teammates, your actual swing coach, mental coach, golf related. Mm-hmm. Those that are, you may have 20, 50 people inundating you with something on a daily basis, and to filter all of that in a productive way is is overwhelming. And, at the end of the day, all we're seeking, if there's anything that you and I have learned, gosh, the joy of rest and peace and joy, and to find little snippets of that along the way for these young people is a real challenge. And so
isn't that the draw to winning, right? Is that there's that small certain section of everything was so cool and so close to right, and we see that it was fleeting, and it was temporary, and maybe it lasted for a day before or a month or two before we still realize we're back on the same crazy train again. But I think something that I realized with the horses is that, so I can take a really good athlete as far as a horse, but if I don't, and I can get them to do the big maneuvers and stuff, but if I don't really pay attention to the really solid foundation,
fundamentals,
right, the fundamentals, then I don't have a basis for the understanding of what really, and I can't fix things, right? I can't write them, and I think that's something that being able to speak and have younger people really process their thinking, not telling them what they should know, but giving them the opportunity to dissect what truth is, or dissect what is real in reality, so that they can come to an understanding of reality in their own right is not being done. They're feeding them, and everything's feeding them what they perceive to be reality or whatever.
Right.
And I think that's one of my objects that one of the things that I really want to set in with my kids is really giving them a solid foundation for what real reality is, and not allowing everybody else to dictate what reality is.
Well, if you're not steeped, armed with the truth, then you'll believe in anything. You'll follow anything.
So
and I think
true.
that like I said, I don't think it's the time to go into all that. But if the fundamentals of truth aren't ingrained in you, you're gonna be in the struggle and not probably not know how to.
Yeah, I would think that it's the same thing with golf. That if not, it's why so many different little gimmicks always sell. Oh yeah, right. It's like there's a new club, or it's a new this, or it's a new that, and really it's your swing.
Shortcut.
Yeah,
everything's a shortcut.
Yeah, well, I can compensate for your lacking here by doing this, right? And so we run down rabbit trails, or we run down snake oil sales, and there's big money in it, right?
Yes, sir.
But the truth is, having your head on right and being loose in your swing. I read, so the mental aspect of competition, I love learning more about that, right? And it's huge in the horses, right? One of the things, there's not a lot of the horsemen and horse trainers don't have enough money to be able to go and buy, or pay for, a sports psychology, or getting a hold of somebody that can really understands the mental game of things. And so, but there is enough people that have money in golf that would be able to hire someone. Mm-hmm. And so, there's a lot more books written on the mental game of golf than there is on horsemanship. Yeah. One of the hard things with golf or with horses is that, we're not dealing with an inanimate object. We're dealing with something that's a thinking, breathing too, mm-hmm. right? So now it's not only a role of competitor, but it's coach and competitor at the same time. Mm-hmm. And so it's almost like makes the mental game even tougher to be able to deal with, because there's a sense of somewhat uncontrollable control that I've got to do from it's the hardest thing of being a coach on the sideline and just biting your nails and going, oh, just let me go do it. Yeah. Right. And that's kind of the same thing, that the restraining yourself and allowing the horse to be able to compete at the high level in the horses. So, I read a bunch of books on it, and the grip of the golfer was one of the things that, a grip of the club was one of the things that really stood out to me, because that's my controlled thing, and I have that. And realizing that I did it was probably the biggest eye-opener to me, was realizing that my grip was so tight around the reins of the horse, and having the knowledge of doing it, then I could do something about it.
My game, the golf game, there's so many parallels, obviously.
Yeah.
But the one thing is that you've got a living, breathing animal that is wanting to control things as well. But the crux of it is the good fundamentals instilled properly will give someone every opportunity to be as good as they can possibly be.
It's the opportunity.
The opportunity.
Yes.
And I can tell you, golf related, and there, you start off with poor grip, which is the fundamental foundation, obviously, because that's what we're holding on to, our performance item,
right.
or element. And boy, you start somebody off with a compromised grip, and it's usually a lifetime struggle ensues. I mean, it's just all the nature of it. Your body, every motion emanates out of a grip. Proper grip will allow a person. There's obviously other fundamentals involved, but proper grip usually forms up a motion that can then be moved, adjusted, whatever, to become the best it can be. But bad grip, you're in for a lifelong struggle. We could go on forever on just that. Yeah.
Well, so my other question to you is to kind of just run me off on this. So when you won the Open Championship, that was 54 holes.
72.
72,
yeah.
72 holes. So one of the things that's crazy to me is that in like something in one of the events that we do, or that the horse industry does, is barrel racing or roping. And there's a mental part to that that's really, at any level, the mental part is really tough. But they're in the pin in performing for literally under 20 seconds. Most of your high level ropers, it's under 10 seconds, under 7 seconds. I mean, it's like crazy, right? And all of it is on that 7 seconds, right? Then you have something like basketball, where they're playing for a couple of hours. Yeah. But you have a team around you, so you have support. If you miss a couple of shots, you're not the one handling the ball all the time. All eyes are not on you all the time. It's not every one of them counts. But for 70 holes, and every single one counts over days.
Yeah.
Like that. So I'm really curious, because that has got to be like a whole nother level. That's the thing I think is so intriguing to me about golf, is the level of... One of the things that I look for in a horse, right? People go, well, do you want a really athletic? Do you want a really smart horse that's really intelligent to do? What I look for in a horse is the dumb jock that is just so like, oh, okay, let's go do it again, right? Yeah. And so it's almost like I would like to have that thought in my head of, whoa, so we get to go again. And that's what I strive for, is to find the joy in it. But I almost like the more I try to concentrate on that, I concentrate on the other. Yeah. What was your mental routine, or your feelings of that in throughout that whole week?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, it's interesting. You sit there, and I have a jillion, no less than a million thoughts run through my mind it's a lifetime. It's an evolution of learning through experience, and just going to the post and is one of our great golf idols, so to speak, Gary Player. You might have heard that name before, but he was one of the real distinct players on the tour that played for many years and was very well respected, very successful, won a lot of major championships. And one of the things that he always said is you have to love adversity. You have to embrace adversity. Yeah. Because whether it's golf, horsemanship, or whatever, anybody can do the easy stuff. Anybody can do it when it's easy. Mm-hmm. It's when you run into the tough stuff, the adversity that will require all all the stuff you can muster up mentally to overcome adversity.
Man,
and,
so that's...
And it's a process you do. And
Wow.
in my case, when I finally recognized that I hated the way it tasted, I decided to do something about it.
Right.
And I wasn't, do they call it stupidity when you continue to do the same things again and again? In golf, it can be that you can run, because you're going to invariably run into some of the same situations every time.
Right.
And are you going to break through this threshold, or is it going to be an obstacle there for the rest of your life? And frankly, everybody doesn't get there. They run into certain things in a golf round, in a golf tournament, they can never break through. And the great ones, I'm not including myself necessarily in that. I had a little moment of success and, in my career, but the ones that, are able to break through these thresholds and, not let adversity cripple them, they're the ones that, you read about and reach the very pinnacle of their game. But, the better
there's
question. There's not a magic pill. It ain't a formula, except because it's a fight. It hurts.
Right.
It hurts. It doesn't feel good. You have, the demons are always there. You can't, are you going to, and I was a hothead, man. I was strung up as tight and hot as anybody. And for years, I would just give in to that, to the mad dog, and I couldn't recover. And if you,
I'm there. I was that.
Gosh,
yeah. I can tell you how many hats I've crushed in a loss.
And how clubs I've broken. I mean, stuff like the same thing.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that, that cord that runs through you that cares, I mean, you're not going to, you may not even get to the arena, but
it's not that you don't want to have that, right? It's embracing that.
Yeah. I think God loves excellence in us too. And excellence requires, not letting these demons overcome you, and to learn how to go to a golf tournament, a golf round, a golf shot, and play freely. I mean, and we have the great example, Jesus. I mean, gosh, I'll guarantee it. If he was on the first tee, he's going to play freely. He's going to hold the club lightly, and he's going to move through it freely, not encumbered with all the anxiety that we are great at putting on ourselves. But the final frontier, as I call it, is kind of the mental part of it. Because if you reach a certain level of horsemanship or golf, or you can do the motion, you can do the riding, you can do, but boy, what your weaknesses are, what your strengths, how are you going to work through the adversity? Something might happen during a horse competition or whatever. And I'll guarantee you'd be able to name a handful of people that probably the same things dismantle a certain competitor every single time.
I watch it really well in tennis. I see it where you can see some of the young players and you're like, okay, so he's there. He's right there where he's at right now. He's like, oh, come on. Like, you got to wipe it clean. It's a clean slate.
Yeah, it is so evident in the tennis game. I love to watch tennis, by the way. But the ultimate, place you want to be is where you can, inexperience is a great teacher, that you can walk through these things and it does not impact, in our game, the next shot, the next hole, the next tournament, because man, sometimes you can hang on to these things, physically, the anxiety and the anger type stuff, and it can, and unfortunately, we know where that spills over into the household, the parenting, the marriage, everything. I mean, so that's multifaceted. Talking about one that I hold on to, and it was spoken from a sports psychologist that I revere. He is well known not only in the golf sports world, but basketball, a lot of sports, a lot of high business people. He said, how are you going to play the best when it means the most? And he has formulas, so to speak, from having observed and from a psychology standpoint of how to fight through this to be your best when it means the most. And that's where we want to be.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the final round,
yeah. And it's even in life. It's like it's so that's something that I really, really enjoy, right? Is also finding truth in creation, right? And in everything that you see and around you, there's truth and there's revelatory stuff in everything that we do that teaches us more and more about life, right? And so that's great if I can win that and I go and put that into the next golf game. But like, man, how do I apply that into the next time I talk to my wife? Yeah. I can be successful in that area. But if I think about it, if I make sense of it to where it's something pertinent, I can actually apply that to the rest of my life too. Because I drag the loss into my house too.
I believe God placed in our hearts the longings of wanting to be great husbands, great fathers, brave, courageous, bold individuals. And sometimes we shellac over that heart stuff, that deep reset, by so much of what the world's telling us we should be. And we do want to be, we do want to be the best we can be, for him.
Yeah.
And him alone, actually, all the glory goes. But
yeah, and it's that's something, because it's incredible that men. It's incredible that he gave us a companion that is so opposite of what we are, that is so willing to forgive. That stuff that I do.
Oh yeah.
It's just, and that's what I see in the horse, right? As I see something that is so willing to forgive, right? The frustration, me trying to like strangle one to do it harder and faster. Yeah. And then I come back up the next day and they're going to show it to me. They're going to tell me, telling me exactly what I'm doing wrong. Because the way that they react, and because they're so honest and true in so much of the stuff that they do. It's me having the desire to seek that out and find out what it is that's going to change that. And that, I think, is introspective is what makes a great coach. I think that's it is one of the unsung guys, right? That, man, so I'm curious to know what is the caddy's role, because that's something that, speaking of unsung, right? Like the importance of somebody like that.
Yeah. So, and in some cases, the true servant, they're really somewhat in a subservient type posture.
Sure.
But I want to tell you, and
that is leadership, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, very important. Who gets all the accolades of players, certainly. Sure. But I would tell you, caddies, and I was one that would be quick to say my caddy had a very, very important part in anything that I did of consequence. I relied on him. I trusted him.
Who was your caddy?
Well, his name was John Griffith. I had many caddies, but in the good run I had when I played the tour, he was my caddy. But interestingly enough, he knew me better than I knew me, and he was so helpful in the. When things got tough, he knew what to say, what not to say. He knew, like I said, he knew my tendency. He knew where I could get off on a kind of on a rail, and he knew how to reel me back in. But very important in the professional game, caddies are so important, and they are really kind of well spoken of, certainly in golf commentary and how a player. They're involved in his success very, very much. They have a lot of obligation.
A big role to play.
Role to play. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And very important. Yeah.
So if somebody was going to be a caddy, like how would you go about doing? I'm curious, how does somebody get to be that part? Right? I mean, I know the process. I would imagine I could figure some of the stuff out on how to head my way towards a top golfer, pro golfer, or at least, heading through college and whatever else. But like, what's the prerequisite? How do you get started in, or how did you even find one?
Yeah. Well, honestly, if we're talking about the a high level caddy in the professional game, usually I'm going to bet. Well, I'd almost be willing to say 100%. It's someone that has been in golf, for a lot of years. In fact, I'd say the majority of them are very good players, have even tried to play professionally, didn't get there. So they found a role that they could certainly be helpful to a player that because they understood the game so well, know the game so well. And, and is it, as you would maybe work through becoming a caddy for somebody, it's kind of like a network deal. I've got a friend, like let's say Phil Mickelson's caddy has a friend that, was a player, very good player, kind of finding himself, trying to find his way. And somebody on the tour needs a caddy and say, well, so-and-so, is, and it's kind of a natural, to be honest with you. And then, the success of a player caddy, is kind of the relationship anyway, has to be that they're, they're
kind of symbiotic in the way they work.
That's right? They're in step with one another.
Yeah.
And I say it a different way. I mean, the caddy in some regards, maybe he knows the player, as well as the player knows himself, and, can be the, kind of the sixth sense, so to speak, in the relationship. But there's opportunity. Some people might, they're just trying to find their way. And if they had any interest in golf, there are plenty of caddy opportunities with caddy organizations, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to end up in the professional game, caddying for a big high profile professional. That, they would very much, kind of categorize themselves as true professionals. And they are.
I would imagine.
Because a lot's required of them. They're not just out there carrying the bag, making decisions along the way with a player in a round of golf, but they're responsible for,
I would say they would, like, I was thinking about that, right, is almost like a sort of a coaching role, but not only just that, being participant in it, but also like a caddy could really jack your brain. Like they could really ruin your game too, as much as, as being, helping in it too. So I would imagine, having that deal that works together, it's got to be another personality that's part like yours. It's got to be somebody that knows the game and whatever, but also more than anything, just knows that, stop trying to use the 9, use the 7. And, like I said, stop trying to do that.
You, as a professional, you'll know, if somebody's going to work out or not. And frankly, I'd have to say this, a caddy player relationship can go on for many, many, many years, long-term relationships. And to be honest with you, the player spends more time with his caddy than he does his family. Almost. Yeah. I mean, that can be, in some cases, that's probably true. So you're going to have your
essentially a coworker.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's a working relationship, and boy, like a marriage, you have to work at it. There's some tendencies that you don't like to say. It was in my case, like to see in my caddy, but I know there were some tendencies. But you work on that, and you get through those things. And for it to be an effective working relationship, you have to understand one another. And if it's all good, you can do some pretty incredible things, together.
Yeah, it's kind of it's neat. That's neat to see that. That's what I think I really enjoy the most about sports all the way around. Like now I'm all like I used to I took up golf for a little while, and I would play and practice once every probably 7 months, whether I needed it or not. I would practice. That's about as bad. That's the extent of where my golf was.
Sure. I get it.
But I did. I really, the intriguing part to me on that was because I wanted to learn more about the sports, the psychological part of the game, and I think I've been that kind of same guy where I would get aggressive. Like I would just I think more of it was because when I lost, it was because I had a lack of control. When I couldn't control and that's been a kind of like a theme in my life. I got rewarded for being controlling. Mm-hmm. I got, I got told that I couldn't get a loan for my first, building my first barn. And I just put my head down and I made it happen.
Don't tell me I can't.
Yeah, and it was one of those deals that the more that I did it, the more I got rewarded, mm-hmm. right? And then there was a point of diminishing returns that, like I would try to force everything. And even to the point of like, even with my wife, that I would, that poor woman, you haven't met my wife, but she's like right up there with Angel. She's right there with them.
I suspect so.
Oh, she puts up with a lot. But that was one of the things that I think was so difficult for me, was not trying to ramrod everything into place. When you see that in a young player, when you see that tendency that you had in a young player, what's your advice, or what do you give them a way to work that out?
Yeah, you ultimately that can be a very, very strong quality in certainly from a coachable standpoint or a teaching standpoint. And I would, I just want to reference that I fall way short. There are a lot of people that, like, just because I did it 6 years, I'm not qualified on a lot of fronts to speak to, a lot of what is involved in the coaching world.
Sure.
To maybe even fall back to that initial conversation about that, I think that I just saw that my role in that environment was that I was going to have some opportunity to speak some encouragement in the kid, and not always relative to the game of golf. So, but coaches are, they're involved with these personalities almost 24/7 because they're responsible for them, number one, and they have a lot to say into their academic life, their certainly their performance and their what they're doing when competitively, but then hopefully they get that third element of which is developing some big thought perspective in their lives. But
it is, right? I mean, that is, every time you're speaking into somebody's life about their golf game, you're speaking into their life too.
I think so. Yeah. I think so. And if anything, much like yourself, I think that because of where you've been, what you've done, where I've been, what I've done, we've had the great opportunity to develop a platform to, have these opportunities to speak into the kids. But when you see a kid that's strung highly and is highly competitive, usually that comes with a set of circumstances. I mean, they usually are short fused and probably have some anger issues because you have to learn to control these things if you're able to get and to move along in the process of becoming the best you can be. And then it's personality driven, but sometimes you can identify, well, if you're going to continue to every time you're faced with that situation, if you're going to continue to throw in the towel, then we're never going to get past this hurdle. You're going to have to accept it. You're going to have to recognize that what it does to you, not only mentally but physically, because sets of circumstances when it gets tough, it makes us want to race. Everything wants to move 100 miles an hour faster than normal. We have to learn to control emotions. I mean, all of that stuff. I think that's one of the big teachers. You have to understand at certain given moments in a round of golf and any kind of competition that you're gonna run into situations that are gonna cause you to race mentally blurred thinking, not clear thinking. And more often than not, what that'll encourage us to do is just to kind of, this doesn't feel any good. I mean, I'm just going to hit I won't go through my process of being the best I can for this next golf shot or for this next, whatever it may be. So,
man, that's really insightful. Being able to, for me, it's like, if I show one weekend, then I compete again the next weekend. And I may have 7 days, I may have a month in between the next competition, right? And mine's like a 5-minute competition. Yeah. So I've got a lot of lag time in between. And so for me to, it's difficult for me to not live in the last show, right? And recover to get to the next. But there's a bigger amount of time. There's a month in between that I've got to process. And yours is in between each shot. Yeah, so you've literally got, like minutes. And then you got to get back and recover and then get back to zero to go back and get your next swing. And I think something that's sad right now is that society in our world today is not telling the younger generation that they have to go through the struggles. They're almost being told that they don't have to, right? And but nobody's saying embrace the struggles, and the struggles are where we all grow. And so when you are facing that and you are dealing with that, what's greater practice than to, like, every 7-10 minutes you got to recover and regroup and go back. I'm like, you can really if you really do that, you can get yourself to do it a lot more regular to be able to do it. Mine's over a month to go and get back to where I'm at zero on that. And really where I get to do it is like when I walk in that gate. I've gotten now where I can be as nervous and worried and whatever else. When I walk through the gate, whenever I'm coming in, it's like, goes.
Oh man,
it's all gone, and I love it.
Now you talk about speaking similar language. All the stuff going on here. Yeah. Just let me inside the ropes. Just let me inside the arena. That's my home. That's where I want to be.
Isn't that a great place?
Oh my gosh! But and I think there's and you can't discount that kid-like love of loving what you're doing. I just could not wait for long time from the first time I picked up a golf club till. It certainly doesn't happen now, but I just couldn't wait to get in there and do it one more time. And as we call it, inside the ropes, but because there's no distraction,
it's just like a tunnel vision.
You're
in
your own little vacuum, little world. And sometimes the better you are to insulate yourself in this, when literally your concentration level, your level of involvement and focus is so good, you just have no clue. You don't see people. It's all a backdrop, but it's the zone that and that's a beautiful place to be.
Gosh, it is a beautiful place.
Sports psychologists are trying to recreate it so you can be in there all the time. Not reality. No.
You got to get out of it.
Oh, absolutely. You're a zombie. Yeah.
Weirdo.
But that's good stuff. There's a lot of.
It's a beautiful place.
It is.
It really is.
In my game, there were a lot of reasons, like I said, that eventually gravitated out of it. A lot of factors, self-inflicted, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But there's along the way, certainly doing anything long term, you almost have to recreate. You don't. That little. Some people, I think, we've got a handful of players that really have been the greatest that ever played the game. That. Not that they didn't recreate their love, but they had this genuine love and passion to play the game competitively and professionally that just drove them, and they just could do it forever.
Those are fun to watch, right? So there's guys that do that have that, and that beat themselves up the whole time. And those are not like necessarily like where you want it to see. But you have the other ones that have the true youthful joy. Like you see the joy in some of those guys that just, is so ecstatic over getting to be able to get back in there and play and do. And it's almost like the guy that all the other players love more than he loves himself, right?
Player, how about Roger Federer?
Yes, exactly.
Let me tell you, everybody wants to be a Roger Federer. I mean, I don't know that any sportsman has ever done it more beautifully but
yeah, I agree.
He's got, and I don't know where he is spiritually, I don't know, but he seems to have such a great grasp on, and a great perspective on who he is, where he is, the game he plays. And boy, if you wanted to ever look at an example of how to carry yourself through high profile living, Roger Federer
his has been crazy high profile for such an extended long period of time. I think that would be a hard place to be in. For me, would be a hard place to be and keep perspective on reality. That would be so hard. That would be it would almost have to be like making a certain part of your life behind the ropes too, right? Boy, like you would have to insulate yourself on. I would imagine too, maybe now for kids, that young people that are, I find myself calling people kids now.
I love it.
At that age, but that you almost have to insulate yourself from social media too. Like I know that I put myself out there a few times, or quite often now on social media to. It's a place to advertise now. I mean, there's no other place to really, that's going to reach the way you're going to reach and the kind of audience that you want to be a part of. And, but at the same time, I can see a place where I would get further into that and I'll turn the comments off because I'm going to insulate that. Yeah. I don't want to play with the what ifs and the weird, silly stuff. And I have no desire to do that. I don't want to join in on that. And so I would imagine on a young person nowadays to shut that off or create parameters for yourself. I do that with my horses and stuff. Certain things, like I know if I put pressure on a horse in a certain place in the arena, that I create tension in that space in the arena. And so I create parameters in my training that doesn't allow me I cannot reprimand in this spot, right? It's got to be outside, 30 feet outside of that. And so in doing so, it doesn't get me to pressure there, but I also don't create the pressure myself. Mm-hmm. And so it's not something that's a hardline rule. You could never do that or somebody else couldn't do that, but it's a parameter that I give myself because I know that creates a pressure and I can create the pressure and put the pressure on the horse in that position and create more problems. So it's better if I create the pressure outside of it and enough pressure that I can run through that spot. Right? Yeah. But those parameters I think are important, even for the game of golf on the mental game of it too. Would be that, creating some of those kind of deals, I have a problem on the seventh hole, and seventh hole is, so at seventh hole, I eat a bag of peanuts because but if it's something silly that would kind of like, boom, take me off. I've got something that I've got to get a hold of instead of going down the same manhole that I go down.
That's brilliant thinking there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think those things that's intriguing.
I played this seventh hole, and in a professional game of golf, you play the same golf courses, a lot of them, year in, year out. Yeah. Step up on that seventh hole, but to use your example, whatever, par 3, whatever. I've hit it to the left here every time I've ever played this hole. Why don't I tee it up on the left side of the tee box? Or why don't I hit a different type shot to this hole? Yeah. And
I'm gonna play a different club. I'm gonna look at a different tree. I'm gonna get
that's right, a different shot. And immediately it becomes a kind of a new challenge as opposed to falling back in the just that thought of I've hit it left here every day, whatever.
Because it's on the same road. I go the same path of silliness that I take myself down, right? Exactly. One of the things that I got told that I gathered from the sports psychology of it for the horse deal was that so I if I'm going to create a new path, right, then what my problem is that I always end up over here. Right. And so I'm going to take a new path. But if I start to find myself veering off and heading back down towards the path, to completely stop, blank slate, restart over, because the more I travel in the right direction, the deeper that groove gets. right, in my brain of being able, I'm creating a new path. If I allow myself to go head and veer off and try to gather myself back on track, I'm still heading in that other one, and I'm building a deeper and deeper groove, still going out. So I only work the correct line of thinking. And if it comes to where it enters my mind that, here I start right back over. We're on the 7th hole, we're walking up, and again, but nope, stop. We're walking up the 7th hole, and I'm going to just make that a deeper, deeper groove of positive until I get there.
Well, that's brilliant. I could, we talk all day about that. I have a mentor of mine and he's a spiritual mentor of mine. Actually, I've gone to his Tuesday morning Bible studies forever, but he talks about those being neural pathways.
Yes, they
and
are.
He said learner, and it's about creating new neural pathways.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's brain function. I decipher. I mean, I don't know, but the fact of the matter is, and that's I think when we talk about scriptural learning, biblical learning, any kind of learning, you're creating new truth, new neural pathways of which you're going to tend to get in that groove more often than.
Well, it's the same that you would even on physical, right? It would be the same thing that I would want to do whenever I go to step up to the tee on a physical aspect of it that I want to do. Like you see it in these guys that shoot free throws, right? They have it, you bounce it 3 times, look up, look down, bounce it 3 times, look up. So you're creating that, it's almost the physical lines up with your mental as far as like creating that same, positive pathway.
Well, that's golf speaking. We call it routine. I mean, routine. Golf should be. Maybe it's if it at its purest level, very monotonous.
Yeah.
Same routine. Because the only thing when you can rely on out there by yourself, obviously you can, is your routine. And when you when things get squirrely or get tough, or you feel these emotions changing, boy, you better have your routine you can rely on. It's, and there's a lot to it. We won't go into it now, but a routine is something you can fall back into that will allow you to get to this, see it, feel it, execute. You see the shot, and it's so much a routine that it's a process. Routine,
but you're learning to focus, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's what it is. It's a concentrated level, and we're not zombies. Sometimes, we're
whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
But this, the more we're adept at falling into this routine, the more we can rely on to it. And when things get crazy, when everybody gets here you are in your little routine, your little world, and it's a lifelong learning process, to be honest.
It really is, and it's applicable to everything. I was just kind of thinking about that it's something that I struggle with, and I want to get better at is being able to. I love learning more. One of the things that I love learning is theology. I love theology. I love the thinking and the process of and apologetics. I love that kind of stuff, and just reality and everything. And but part of that is is me having enough creating enough of the habitual part of it. Like I don't have it down as a routine of what time and when I go and I read, or that I do that. I kind of can on that. And it's so funny because it's not as reflective in the rest of my life, on the training that I do. And I'm trying to get more and more and more routine on that. But, like something else that, that's reflective of the rest of what else, what's the most important to be able to, have a truth and understanding of reality. And so, if I practice that, and for a young person, if I do practice in taking in reality, taking in what's going on around, what is truth in all of creation? What is everything about me, around me, saying and screaming, right? If I can go back to that, and that's where my go-to, start back here, then when things in life are going, awry, and is this truth, and is this what's really going on is really real? Boy, that would be, there's an important part I need to, and, I love this kind of stuff because this really gets me thinking, right? That, boy, what would I do to create that in my kids as a father? Boy, howdy.
Not sure.
To create that kind of routine truth, routine of going back to what my role, how strong my role is. And that is the importance of being a coach too, right?
Absolutely.
Boy, creating that and yeah.
Well, I think, one of the questions we hear often is, where are we spending our time? I know that, back to the comment I made about important people and the impact they've had on not only my life, but other people's lives. But I see, and you talk about the discipline of and the passion of studying theology, apologetics, but the people that have really impacted my life have been very intentional people about routine development, studying the scripture memorization, truth that screams all the truth that we want to know. And if we're not learners, disciples in that lane, then there's a lot of opportunity to be distracted from living in the truth, so to speak. And those people that I mentioned, they wake up every morning and they're in the Word. They're and
I see that in Luke, right?
Oh golly, yeah. He's
like it's on fire, right? I love to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, love to see that.
That's true commitment, and that's I think that's where we want to be, and I feel like I'm a 50%er. I'll catch it when I can type deal. A little drive by prayer here and there and whatever. And I'm not saying it, but I know that I could be better in that learning lane.
Yeah, me too. But boy, that was an eye opener for me just now. Just thinking about that man, but me not doing that or not being routine or creating that and doing it haphazard is, man, those little kids of mine, they follow everything. And that stinks. I wish they'd follow somebody else that had a little bit better idea of what's going on. But then for some reason he has them follling me. I don't know why. They should follow his mother. Or, she's so much better at some of this stuff. But that's true. Like, all the that's really cool because it's the same thing in our sports are so revealing, right? And our desire, he gave you and me some really, great loves, right? A great desire to get to spend time, and he's reached both of us through those things, right? Drew us to him through those things. Like, how cool is that? That, so that's kind of, I like to see that. I like to see that you're putting it in elsewhere and going out and putting it elsewhere too. And it's kind of what we're supposed to do.
Works in progress. We still are. But, try to, sometimes we get off on that, out there. And I think the crux of it truly is pretty simple about what are we going to do for the sake of others, loving others. And
it's so
I don't
simple.
know, but, I get, I can get, kind of spiraling out and I've learned to cut myself some slack in that respect, but there's a lot of opportunity out there every minute, every day. And, it's good to still be in the game and not on the sidelines.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's, I think probably the coolest thing that I think that, I see in my life is that I'm for what reason? There's no reason really, except for because of His grace. But that I have the opportunity to serve Him, right? Wow, how cool is that? That I get to share what like with you and with me and with others about what it is that what's true, what's the meaning of it all?
Yeah.
We go, what are we going with it? Because it is, and I want to identify myself with some of those things, but at the same time, it's a journey of learning and growing, and man, I'm glad I'm still growing.
Yeah, amen for that. I think it's a season of life too, where we're called no matter where and how, but and I've always short of this is being bold and courageous and and brave in our faith. I mean, I think it's a time where we have to be intentional about opportunity to share our story, and
I think so too.
And not walk by a lot of opportunities that present themselves, and sometimes in the simplest of ways, actually. But
yeah,
we're incredibly fortunate to still have the chance.
Like you having those kids come back and call you or message you every once in a while, and you hear that. It's like it's so refreshing and so cool to see that man, I got used. That's such a cool feeling of that. So I did. The little silly thing that I didn't even think anything about. I said that. I'd
like to think more often than things I maybe did than said, because I can beat a horse into a camel, man. I tell you, I but it's good. It's what the struggle's there, but the arrival will be worthwhile.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's my plan. I plan on sliding in sideways. I'm
glad we're able to share your good lead.
Good. Well, Bill, it was a pleasure getting to talk to you. Really a pleasure getting to talk to you. And getting to share a little bit. I love learning other people's stories and knowing how they work through and the different things, how it impacted them. Yeah. I think those are things are great. I'll have to have you come back sometime.
Well, thanks, Todd. I'd like it, and I love the opportunity to hear how others are making their way. And gosh, you're man, I love what you do and how you're doing it, and
me too.
And implementing this in your walk. Yes. Yeah. Thank you for having me, man.
You bet. It was a pleasure. Thanks.
You bet.